All right, we live. Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor be to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. These are brothers from the hopeful elect. Another topic of discussion, right? And as you see in the title, I should change it to the real reason Shedeur Sanders was not drafted in the first 3 rounds. But nonetheless, being that I know that I watched the game of football, played the game of football. I know that there's a lot of buzz in the media right now surrounding this guy, who's supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks in his class, but unfortunately, the cards are being dealt against his hand in this draft this year. But like I said, all praise, glory, and honor be to the Most High God, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. My job is not to make, or our job, I'd rather say, is not to make the scriptures come to life. The scriptures are life. Our job is just to show you how those scriptures apply in our life, right? And we use real life situations to relate it to the scriptures so you can get a better understanding, right, through the Spirit. So without further ado, let me share my screen real quick. I'm going to read this first precept. And now I want y'all to be very mindful that anything that I'm saying on here, I'll say it as time goes on, right? But let's read this. If a brother could, let's read this in Jeremiah 29.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 29 and 11. For I know the thoughts that I think towards you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end.
Right. So all in all, we got to keep things in the perspective when things don't go right in our lives. The Lord had already had a plan for us, even though this was talking to the prophet Jeremiah, even though this was talking to the people, right? We know that we can apply this on a personal level because it's true. The Lord had a plan for us even before we came out the womb, just like he told Jeremiah, before I formed thee in the womb, I knew thee, right? The same thing is about the plans for our lives. Before we had a concept of what we wanted to do in life, even when we were little and they asked you what you want to be when you grow up. Oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a superhero. I want to be an astronaut, right? The Lord already knew the plan that he had set forth for you, right? And it's up to us to trust the plan of the Lord. It's not for us to tell the Lord, hey, do this for me and I'll do this for you, right? That which brings me to my next scripture, right? Proverbs 3, right? So we can go to Proverbs chapter 3. Let's read verses 5, and let's read 5 through 7.
Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thy own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil.
Right. Hey, be not wise in your own eyes, but more importantly, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not into thine own understanding, right? Again, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, said the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end, right? Not necessarily a peaceful, not necessarily an end filled with every blessing in the world, but an expected end, right? But the only way a lot of things come to pass and fruition in our life is if we trust the Lord's plans, right? If we don't try to make ourselves equal to the Most High God, if we don't puff ourselves up in pride, a lot of things in life will kind of not have you as stressed out as it does a lot of other people, which is why we're doing a lesson pertaining to this topic. Because when it comes to football, having played the game as long as I did, and having played on the collegiate level, I didn't go professional, but regardless of how many may feel I fared on those levels, one thing people can't take away from me is the experiences that I had, right? But there's always some sort of expectation that you set for yourself to accomplish when you play a sport, and you want to live up to it, right? And there's a lot of things that if it doesn't go your way, it kind of gets you down. And there's other people that will celebrate your downfall and will celebrate the lack of success that you have, because they may not like the way you work. They may not like the way you do this. They might like the way you do that. It's a lot of reasons why people may dislike you. It's a lot of reasons why people may feel the way they feel. But again, a lot of those people who have these sorts of, I guess you could say, feelings and emotions and opinions about you, right, are not encompassing of the Most High God. At the same time, you are somebody who always has to remember that everything is the Lord's plans, not yours, right? So even though you set for yourself and you talk a good game and you have all these expectations about what should come to pass, remember that the Lord can do anything because it's his plan.
Hey,
right?
what they say about what do they say is the thief of joy?
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Right. So I wanna kind of modify that and say expectation is the thief of joy, right? Because expectations in any aspect of life, whether it's relationships, whether it's money, whether it's appreciation, whether it's your job, whether it's a sport, expectation is the thief of joy. If you have expectations for your kids, if you have expectations, you're bound to get let down, and it's bound to steal your joy, right? I want to pull up a few examples, bring a few examples to mind, right? Gilbert Arenas, right? It's sad what happened with his son, but I'm sure Gilbert Arenas was expecting his son, right, to do great things, and he probably still can do great things. I'll say that as a disclaimer, right? If you don't know about Gilbert Arenas, his son was in a car crash. But what if the doctor says he's no longer able to play basketball, right? And I say that because he'll be let down because of all the hours that they put into the gym, and because of those hours, he always brags about it in interviews. He expects his son to be the best in his class, right? And expectations in life will let you down because God will have things happen like car crashes and things of that nature to get in your way, right? Do you have Proverbs 27:1 on your list?
Nah, I can pull it up though.
Right, we'll read that real quick. Proverbs 27:1. Because, expectations give us a certain, there's nothing wrong with confidence, but expectations give us a certain level of confidence to where sometimes we take God out of it unknowingly. We'll say thanks God and God's in control, but when God really takes control, are we happy about it? Do we understand it? Or do we understand that it's out of our hands? Do we go with the punches when God is in control? A lot of times our joy is stolen because of expectations. That's why I said it's the thief of joy, really, right? Proverbs 27:1 says, boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth, right? And I'm saying this because on topic of the title, we understand that the Sanders family puts God first, they say, right? And I believe personally, like, they love God and, they accept God for everything that's happening, and they love him no matter what. But sometimes our confidence and our talent of whatever in life will cause us to boast in tomorrow. I'm going number one. I mean, why wouldn't the team pick me, right? They would be stupid if they don't pick me, right? If you don't get drafted on round one, hey, we're looking forward to tomorrow. We're happy and we'll be smiling tomorrow. Legendary. That's once again boasting again of the things of tomorrow, right? So even if we do get wronged in life, it sucks. But the only way that it's going to affect us and make us spiral and go into depressions is if we have expectations in life, right? And I'm not saying not to look on the brighter side of life. I'm just saying don't expect a certain fairy tale ending in life, because God can throw anything your way in your journey and in your story, right? A lot of people in the Bible didn't understand or know what they was going to be doing later on in life. David didn't know he was going to be a king from a shepherd, right? Paul didn't know that he was going to be killed in the name of Christ when he was killing for Christ, right? So expectations, man, you can't expect nothing in this life, man. You can't expect everything to go well all the time. You can't expect everything to go good all the time, right? I mean, you can't expect everything to go wrong all the time, right? On both coins. So I'll just say that real quick, man. Well, it wasn't real quick, but you know what I'm saying. I yield.
It ain't nothing wrong with, man. Like the brother said, sometimes you got to put things into perspective, right? Having expectation is very like a term that people misunderstand. You should expect things to go the way the Most High planned it to go, not the way you planned it to go. So if you're having some sort of expectation, always expect that the Lord's will be done and not your own, right? The reason I like this chapter is because let's read verse 2. It says, "Let another man praise thee, and not thine own mouth, a stranger, and not thine own lips." Now, that's going into some things that I was thinking about as I was formulating this live, because I didn't have to do no deep studying to talk about football. You know what I'm saying? But what I did meditate on a lot is about the conversations me, the brothers on the screen, and another brother was having Thursday on our weekly men's nights, is about why, the brother Shedeur, his draft stock has spiraled as far as it has. And some people allude to the fact that, his, I guess you could say, confidence in himself, could be coming off as arrogance and pride and obnoxiousness. So a lot of times when you see in the media Deion Sanders or his sons just lift themselves up, and not necessarily from my standpoint, I'm gonna just speak from me. From my standpoint, not necessarily from a prideful and arrogant standpoint, but a standpoint of speaking with confidence and knowing who you are and what you bring to the table, right? That could be confused with arrogance. And this is why it says, let another man praise thee, right? And not thine own mouth, a stranger, and not thine own lips. Because see, what begins to happen is people feel as if they have to make examples out of you. And that is nothing more than what's going on right now. The reason that Shedeur Sanders, even still to this point, who was projected to be a first-round draft pick, one of the best quarterbacks in college football, top two, honestly, in my opinion, not necessarily two, but 1A, 1B with Cam Ward, right? I feel like they're making an example out of him because of how prideful or arrogant, he may seem, or his father may seem, or the family in its entirety, right? Again, a lot of that prideful and arrogance could be fueled by, like the brother Azrael just said, expectation. Sometimes we got to put our plans to the side and just think about, what the Lord could possibly do, because again, and I'll let you go, brother, now in a second. And again, once you set a goal for yourself, you feel like it's now the Lord's responsibility to make that goal happen, and in the way that you wanted it to happen, because you feel like, I've prayed, I've done the work. You know what I'm saying? But realistically, when you truly leave things in God's hands, stuff like this wouldn't surprise you. It wouldn't affect you. The only people that's really happy about this is people that, have I guess you could say, a negative plight towards you, right? Or people who just have no understanding of the scriptures. But go ahead, King.
Colin, that's a mighty point. You know what I'm saying? To piggyback on what the brother said, right? Expectations, man, they that have you looking stupid, right? Because none of us can formulate the future, right? All we can do is hope, pray, and dream, right? What does the Bible say about dreamers, right? In essence, yeah, you can get some things from some dreams, but in essence, it says that the dreamer really is foolish, right? And I think the type of dreaming it's talking about is dreams like going to the league, dream like being the number one draft pick, things like this, right? It's foolish to set your heart right on these things because you don't know what could happen, right? Whether you get in a car accident, like the brother mentioned earlier, or whether you dealing with the politics of things where it ends up like this, right? There's an old saying, it's a cliche saying, old proverb. It says, if you want to make God laugh, do what, right?
Tell him your plans.
Tell him your plans, right? If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, right? And so, like, we're not writing this book as much as people think that they're the authors of their own life. as much as people think that they're writing their own story, right? Because that's what we get prideful and we say, right? I'm the author of my story, how I turned out. No, you're not, especially when you're out in the world and you're dealing with multiple people and stuff like this, right? You gotta understand, right? Like the brother said, man, when you that guy, you don't gotta, like he was just reading. When you that guy, you ain't gotta tell nobody. People will speak of you like you that guy. You know what I'm saying? Like when you think about King David, was Saul mad because David was going around saying he killed more people than him, or was he mad that other people were saying that, right? So understand, like when you that guy, you're gonna have haters regardless, but it sometimes it puts a bad taste in people's mouths when you add an insult to injury. you doing it too, right? So now you got the people saying it and you rubbing it in, right? Sometimes it can be a little bit distasteful, right? Whether it's right or wrong, that's up to private interpretation. But you know, why not be like David? Let the people talk for you. You know what I'm saying? Because that hate gonna come regardless. But why not have some type of self-preservation about yourself?
You know,
Right.
Salaki, I was gonna say real quick while we still with Proverbs 27. You know, there's some people that say, "Man, my wife will never leave me. She know I'm him. She know ain't no other brother out here that's as wise or righteous as me." Then their wife leave them, and you know, a spirit gets on their wife to cheat, and now they looking retarded. Well, my job will never fire me. They can't operate without me. They finna promote me actually. Next thing you know, they lay you off. Now you looking like a fool in front of everybody. This is what we mean by expectation, bro. You can't expect people to treat you the way that you think of yourself in your head. That's not how life works, right? Life works on God's accord, right? Whether you want to be a king or not, that's not up to you. That's up to God, right? You could not want to be a king, and God will make you a king. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we don't have our hands to no pen or paper. We're not the author and the finisher of nothing, bro. Right? But I yield.
Con. And a lot is being said right now, but again, our job is not to make the words of the scriptures or the words of the Lord come to life. They are life. We just try to relate it to the people through everyday life experiences, things that we see in the media and stuff like that. So again, the reason that I titled this lesson the way I did is because it's a trending topic right now, dealing with the brother Shedeur Sanders, you know, quarterback from Colorado and Jackson State, why he hasn't been drafted yet. A lot of people are chalking it up to pride and arrogance, right? A lot of people are saying things like, oh, well, he's not that good. I'm not going to get into the deep football side of, you know, his highlights and his stats and accomplishments. I'm just going to say I've seen a lot of football. I played a lot of football. I don't think, as far as from a talent standpoint, you know, X's and O's standpoint, that this brother should have been nowhere outside of, if not the first quarterback taken off the board, which was Cam Ward in this respect, maybe the second, you know what I'm saying? But again, we're not going to get into football and talking football because this is not a sports podcast. This is a biblical channel that we use to edify the lost sheep of the house of Israel and get them to understand certain concepts through everyday life. So what also went into me formulating this topic like this was because I was thinking about the system, right? I said something earlier about, you know, Shedeur Sanders being an example because of what people view as pride and arrogancy of Deion Sanders and his son, right? So people are using this as an example to kind of humble them and shut them up. The brother Denal alluded to something like that before we got on the live because of the situation at hand. You know, they have no power, no control over the draft picks, no control over, you know, who goes where for real. And a lot of people in the media are saying this is an example of why you should keep your mouth shut. A conversation we was having at our men's night was sometimes you just got to play the role until you secure the bag, you know? This is my problem with things that are said like that, right? Like I said, confidence and knowing who you are and knowing what you bring to the table, right? I think a lot of times in this world, specifically when so-called black men are very confident like Shedeur is or Deion Sanders is, the world has a problem with an educated black man who knows his stuff. And I say that because of this. We've seen on different occasions the same thing happen with I guess you could say other quarterbacks from previous draft classes many years ago, right? And their fathers did the same exact thing that a lot of people said Deion Sanders did, which is hurting Shedeur. But they weren't ridiculed in the media by it. Why? Because I'm not making it about necessarily race in its entirety, being that the first quarterback taken in this year's draft was black. The first overall pick in this year's draft was black. I'm making it about race to an extent that when we do something that other people do, we get hit or people dislike it more, right? They dislike it more when we do it as opposed to when they do it. And I say that because, again, everybody is not the same. Everybody has a different personality. So the way Shedeur Sanders was raised was to be confident in his ability. And the reason he can be so confident is because he's trained and he's put in the work. He's watched a lot of football. His dad is arguably one of the greatest football players, greatest athletes of all time. He has the experience of handling pressure situations. He has the experience of seeing many defensive coverages, making throws off balance, making throws sitting in the pocket when you got pressure coming in your face. He has experience leading a team to success. He has that experience, and that's because of his confidence. But his confidence came by the work he put in.
Right.
The same thing. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, the scriptures say a gift destroyeth the heart, meaning our oppressors and the enemy with the children of Israel, they want to be able to give us a gift because they know it destroys our heart and they know that it controls us and they know we'll love them for it, right? There was a clip of Cam sitting next to Shedeur and they were both, just yabbing to the camera. Cam Ward said, look, he got $500 cleats on, them $500 cleats. I wish I could buy them cleats. The NFL wants to be able to make your dreams come true. They don't want you to be able to already, have what you want. They want to be able to give you those $500 cleats. They don't want you to get them on your own. And so the thing is, if you are messing up the dynamic, like the brother said, he's not trying to bring race into it, but there's a certain aspect of race that is taking place here, right? They want to be able to take you out of the projects. They want to be able to give you that dream. And if you already have the dream that you want, you don't have any value to them because they cannot prop themselves up to be God, right? The whole point of being oppressed and even allowing us to have some type of comfortability in this world comes from causing us to sell out. It comes from causing us to worship something else, right? Whether we know we're doing it or not, right? And I talked about this on my story, a lot of people, basketball, soccer, baseball, football, we make these leagues a heaven and a God to where we do anything, change our diet, work out extremely hard, study. We do anything to get to heaven, right? It's a major distraction and it's Babylon. It's confusion because they've turned warriors into athletes. And now if we don't make it to heaven, we spiral out. We go through depressions and things of that nature, right? And so that's what's kind of going on behind the scenes too. Yeah, you could say it doesn't have to do with race, but it does have to do with race because they know that they don't dangle the league in front of white people like they dangle the league in front of us. It's not a white person's only way out in society. This is why we see the flashiness not coming from the white people, right? It's coming from the melanated people, right? The melanated people are the ones that got chains and this is the day of their life. This is better than Judgment Day for them, better than going to see the Lord for them, right? But for the white person, we watched it on the draft on Thursday. It's a normal day for them. You know what I'm saying? They're not getting dressed up for real. Some of them not even showing up to the event. Like they chill back with their grandparents, and that's just what it is. It's a race thing in the aspect of oppression, in my opinion.
Yeah, man. All white guys, man. They son make it to the NFL. Grandpa, he's sitting in the chair, he rocking back and forth like, he was that good? Okay. I didn't know he was that good. Right? But, like the brother said, it's not their only way out. A lot of times these folks got family businesses and family farms and all that stuff to where, like, grandpa thought you was going to come help him on his farm. But, you made it to the NFL. He's like, oh, I didn't know He was that good, you know what I'm saying? But it's an everyday thing to them. For us, man, you see them celebrations from Travis Hunter, big boy that got drafted, running down and jumping and dancing and all this stuff. Like they just heard, well done, my good and faithful servant. You know what I'm saying? Like this stuff is really heaven to them. You know what I'm saying? And so like when you put it on a pedestal like that, like the brother was going into, it forces you to pigeonhole yourself and to kind of get in line in a sense, right? Like if like for instance, like for Shedeur, like he's at a point now where like that whether he wants to believe it or not, that's his heaven, to the point where it's like he done dedicated and devoted his whole life to getting there, right? I'm talking about how old is Shedeur? Like 23, 22. 22 years of his life really has been like dedicated to get into the league, right? He done had training with Tom Brady, all of this, right? And for him to be right at the door, and it's gonna be like many of us though with the Most High, like depart from me, I never knew you type deal, right? He's facing that, you know what I'm saying? And that a lot of people say that's the most scariest thing ever, right? For Shedeur right now, he don't really show it, but it's the scariest thing ever that he might not get drafted. He might not get an opportunity to make it into his heaven, man. You know what I'm saying? So on the other side, it's on spiritually, this is what happens. And I was gonna say this precept for later, but it's a perfect segue. Could we don't necessarily have to bring it up, but can I read it real quick? You might already got
it. Bring it up. Let's bring it up.
You already got it in your arsenal. But Lamentations 4:17.
Hey man,
depart from me, I never knew you is a good comparison though, because right now it's like you thought you were saying, Lord, I did all these works,
did all these miracles, right? I took Colorado from
the league.
Right. I took Colorado from a no name to a name. You know what I'm saying?
The world knows me. And you saying you don't know me? You don't recognize who I am? You saying that my stats aren't good enough? You saying that I didn't put no work in? You saying that my talent's not there?
Right. You can pull up Lamentations 4:17?
Man, that's gonna hit hard for a lot of us.
Yeah, I already gotta pull it up.
Is that Lamentations 4:17? Oh, okay, yeah. It says, as for us, our eyes have yet failed for our vain help. In our watching, we have watched for a nation that could not save us. That's what's happening, right? Because we forget where we are, right? You can Dion, man, prime time. I love the family to death, but they forgot where they was at. They forgot we in captivity. They forgot. Hey, you can pop your junk on camera, right? You can do all X, Y, and Z, but understand at the end of the day, you're not running stuff like you kind of think you're running stuff. You know what I'm saying? Now, what I think what blinded them with the gift that destroyed the heart was when they went to Colorado and they could do what they wanted to do. They could flaunt in front of these white boy faces. They could get the job done. They can win games, stuff like this, do miracles and all this stuff, right? But after Colorado, your dad was the head coach. You know what I'm saying? After Colorado, the league that you're trying to go into, we're talking about the NFL. This is probably, I speak as a man, but the NFL is probably one of the most racist or sports organization there is. I mean, when you even look at the dynamics of the team names, like when you go into the history of my perception, right? The NFL team is the Patriots, bro. In my perspective, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like when you look at the Patriots, 9 times out of 10, if they playing on Thanksgiving, they're gonna win. You know what I'm saying? Then you can look at teams like they had like the Indians and stuff like that, or the Chiefs or whatever, right? It's the most racist league to me. And this is a league you're trying to get into. You see what I'm saying? And we look for a nation spiritually that cannot save us, right? We look to these nations, we look to the NFL, we look to the NBA, not realizing who it's ran by. And so this is what I was talking about before we got online, is where it leads to them being being shut up, right? It's one thing that I fear for them, because I like the way they move, I like the way how they talk, right? But when the organization is led by people that's not on your side, right? Now you find we were talking about a clip from Dion where everybody was saying Dion was speechless for the first time in how long, right? Because they're now faced with the humbling aspect of the NFL, right? As much as we don't want to admit it, as much as they don't want to admit it, and how they kept popping like, ain't nobody gonna humble us, ain't nobody gonna shut us up, right? We've now at the door where somebody's shutting you up, and everybody's seeing it. You see what I'm saying? And it's sad, but it's kind of true because that's where they're trying to head to. And to get there, they got to play the part. Just like for us, to get to heaven, to get to the kingdom of God, we got to play the part. When you look at Joseph, when Joseph was in captivity, he got elevated to where he was at, but he knew who he was dealing with. He wasn't going there popping his junk. You know what I'm saying? He had a certain way about himself. We look at Daniel and the 3 Hebrew boys. They handled business, but they wasn't up there boasting and popping their junk. I'm talking about Moses. When Moses was going to Pharaoh, we just got out of Passover. When Moses was going to Pharaoh, bro, he was going to Pharaoh respectfully every single time. He wasn't going up there popping his junk like, yeah, bro, we finna murk. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't going. He was respectfully trying to get the children of Israel up out of there. You see what I'm saying? And so we got to understand where we are at and the position that we're still in captivity. We can't do what we want to do, right? And all throughout the scriptures, we can't do what we want to do until we get our Lord and Savior back. We can't pop. We should be able to, right? But we gotta face the consequences that come with that too. You know what I'm saying? That's all. That's my take, right? We gotta remember where we at.
L take. No, I'm just messing. I'm just messing. Nah, and like the brother finished it out with, that's my thing. We should be able to, but we can't. Right. So I keep trying to segue into it, but keep getting sidetracked by other things I thought about. Because like I said, it wasn't like a spur of the moment, I made this up on Thursday type thing. I didn't think about doing this lesson this specific. I thought about a lesson, but it wasn't going to be titled this specific lesson until last night on my way home and realizing that, man, this is going on almost round 3. And this man, Shedeur Sanders, still hadn't been drafted. So again, it's not because I'm such a big Shedeur Sanders fan as if I'm putting this man as an idol. No, it's not nothing like that. It's about so-called how the media portrays so-called young black men when they walk and talk a certain way, and how it's given. Like the brother said, certain things we just can't do, and should we be able to freely? Yes. But like he said, one, we're still in captivity. So there's a lot of different things that people are going to try to do to remind you of the simple fact that you truly have no power. One of them is giving you a slice of humble pie, or like they used to call it in slavery, buck breaking, right? Because that's the first thing I thought about when this was going on. This is not physical, right? This is not physical, but nonetheless, it is a form of buck breaking, because there is no way every NFL analyst, every NFL athlete that has played the game, understands the game, and who also supports the talent on the field and, the confidence off the field when it comes to this quarterback, Shedeur Sanders. When they're saying they haven't seen nothing like this in all their years being around the game, this is how you know it's an example of buck breaking, right? What you do is you take the biggest, baddest slave, right? And you hold him against his will in front of the people, right? And you do abominable things to him to get the people to get in order, right? And that's all that's going on right now is buck breaking. And I'm gonna pull it up.
Hey, bro, it's funny, man, because this buck break is happening. It's definitely happening for sure, and it's actually working. Like I said, man, Shedeur and Dion singing a different tune right now. They're a little bit quieter. They're a little bit humbler. So best believe they're gonna allow Shedeur to make it into the league after this because they're being successful in their buck road. We're saying they're looking at it like, oh yeah, I told y'all niggas we get y'all right.
You gotta
but
think
then also one thing too, right? Before I let you go, I find all of this funny is because the draft is literally a big auction block, and it's funny because like people really feeling some type of way that this man, this slave, this biggest baddest slave, is not being put up on the auction block. Right, it's kind of backwards in a sense. You know what I'm saying?
And it's really the big bag slave you're talking about is really Dion. I'll say, because in my opinion, the narrative is this: if they were to let this slide like a picture perfect story, the narrative on every social media platform, on every take sports analysis, they would say, wow, this has never been done, man. This is groundbreaking for Dion as a father, for his son and the Black community and X, Y, and Z. They couldn't afford that to happen. Then every Black dad is going to be able to think they can do the same thing just because their son is talented.
They're probably looking at the NBA like, nah, we can't end up like the NBA. The NBA went outside with that whole LeBron and Bronny thing. That ain't going on over here. You know, but I ain't gonna lie, Bronny was not acting like Shedeur. Bronny was very humble and quiet. You know what I'm saying? So that could be another reason why that whole situation even came to fruition. You see what I'm saying? Because one could argue that Bronny wasn't even close to being as talented as Shedeur.
You know, but people. But and this is what I say, and I'm gonna say it again because everybody has their own opinion about the things, even brothers on the screen. I'm gonna always say, man, I don't even think it's from a standpoint of Shedeur Sanders wasn't a humble guy. And I say that because again, a lot of the interviews. Now, again, don't know this man personally, so my job is not to defend Shedeur Sanders like my life depends on it. But I will say that again, from the interviews that we've seen, post-game press conferences, all leading up to the draft, none of those interviews gave prideful. You know, people call it that because he had his hat worn backwards, but another quarterback had his hat worn backwards at the draft. He was drafted, but he also has his chains. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is, like I say, confidence in this, when it comes from a young Black man, especially in today's society, even by Black people, can be viewed as arrogance and pride. You know what I'm saying? Lack of humility. Somebody said, man, he's a locker room cancer. And I've never heard any of his teammates come out and say that about him. Some of them said, oh, he's a narcissist. You know, he just nothing but full of himself. And these are a lot of allegations. Yeah, these are a lot of allegations to be thrown out at a 22-year-old kid who's grown up, done everything the right way as far as the standards that he knows that his father set for him, and ultimately kind of lived up to them. A lot of the hype too, as well, with his on the field performance. But nonetheless, this is why I said this is a form of buck breaking, because, like the brothers say, they're trying to get it to the point where anybody else, especially young Black kids who have this type of persona that makes them feel uncomfortable, we're going to prove to you a point that you're not going to make me feel uncomfortable in my house or in my league or in my business. I'm not obligated to do for you. You're obligated to do for me. And like the brother said, even though I disagree with it, I don't disagree with it because it's not true. I just disagree with it because I don't think that, you know what I'm saying? I don't think that anyone should conform to the ways of the system just so they can get into what the brothers described as their heaven, right? Because again, our job is to tell people that the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, the NHL, the MLS, none of these sports organizations are our heaven, right? The rap, all the labels that you can sign to, all the money that you can make from rap, even if you become a doctor, even if you become a lawyer, even if you become a heavy equipment operator, or you got your CDLs, it doesn't matter what you do in this life. None of the stuff that you do in this life that pays you the most money and brings you the most happiness is our heaven. And that's my point, right? But buck breaking, again, it says for many, and I know we can't I can try to zoom in on it, but I don't think I really can. Oops. What does it say? It says, for many enslaved, and I'm reading right here. If you can't see it, I apologize. But it says, for many enslaved African Americans, one of the cruelest hardships they endured was sexual abuse by the slaveholders, overseers, and other white men and women whose power to dominate them was complete, right? Enslaved women were forced to submit to their masters' sexual advances, perhaps bearing children who would engender the rage of a master's wife, and from whom they might be separated forever as a result. Masters forcibly paired good breeders to produce strong children they could sell at a higher price, right? So it says resistance brought severe punishment, often death. So again, this is not to take the Shedeur situation and compare him to the brothers and sisters who endured slavery and got buck broke by their master. But physically. I'm saying that in a spiritual sense, right? If you understand history, it repeats itself. And this is nothing more than an example of taking someone who resisted to the will of the system and saying, okay, we're going to give you a severe punishment. And part of this brother's severe punishment is having a draft stock that's completely spiraling downhill, right? I think up to this point, he still hasn't been drafted yet. So it's not about, and like I said, that's why we started the lessons off with Jeremiah 29 and Proverbs 3:5, because if you, like the brother said, if you don't make the NFL your heaven, even though you trained your whole life for it, blood, sweat, and tears, you worked hard, you sacrificed a lot, right? You lost friends, you lost family, even relationships, right? To get to this league. If you didn't make those sacrifices thinking that this league was going to be your way out, right? If you didn't glorify this league the way you do, then you would realize it doesn't matter when you get drafted as far as number wise or round wise, and it doesn't matter where you get drafted to. It's about what you do once you step on that field for the first time during rookie minicamp, right? Because again, all of this is smoke and mirrors, right? Every time there's something going on large in the media, there's something behind closed doors going on. But we're going to focus on the large thing right now and show you how it relates to history and how it relates to the Bible. We have to stop making these sports leagues, you know what I'm saying, our goals to life. Because like the brother said, nothing makes me more upset when I see Negroes on the stage crying and dancing and being jovial about getting picked to a league that obviously, if they would take and make an example out of one black man, what you think they're going to do to you?
Man, that's crazy. Crying and dance.
Crying, dancing.
I'm talking about uncontrollably dancing out your pants like David. I'm talking about
crying real tears in your mom's bosom.
Like, bro,
right.
I'm talking about embarrassing dancing. You so happy you can't contain yourself. You yelling and running in church slacks down the hall, jumping for joy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? This is crazy stuff. But again, right? Like this is why the Bible says stuff like gather yourself together. Right, gather yourself together. Oh, nation not desire. They don't desire us.
I want to say too. It's only a breath of fresh air to be able to do lessons like this with brothers on the screen and brothers that understand what's going on. Because in the world, I will say it is vexing to see how confused and how blind people are, and how they just do not want to accept the truth of this whole matter. That all this is ran by our captors.
Right. But you gotta understand, man, everything is controlled by the media, right? And sports is literally the media. You see what I'm saying? And so like everything that you're seeing, sports is made for our entertainment, right?
Right.
You would be stupid not to think that they're not formulating situations to entertain you and to cause you to pay attention, bro. You know how much views and the ratings the draft is getting right now? You know what I'm saying? Versus, bro, I speak as a man, but the NFL draft was never this intriguing. It wasn't more. I would say more people watch the NBA draft than the NFL draft, in my opinion, right? Not this year though. You see what I'm saying? But again, like I was saying, gather yourself together, oh nation, not desire. These nations don't desire you, bro. They don't look out for your best interest, right? But you know, you take simple ideas, and Dion on the right track, you know, of what he's trying to do. But my thing is, you take simple ideas like, bro, start your own league. This won't ever happen if black men and black women, right? Hispanic men, Hispanic women. If you start your own league, stuff like this will not happen. The number one. Hey, you deserve to go number one, no matter how you act. Like the brother Isaiah was saying, you're going number one, right? You see what I'm saying? If you start your own thing, but now you have to succumb to whatever they got going on because you done made that your heaven instead of making a league of your own your heaven. You see what I'm saying? Right. And so, like me personally, I was saying before we got on here, and the brothers told me to say this, save it for the video. If there's like me, I know a lot of people are not in the truth. A lot of people, you know, they can't control their vanities. But me personally, if I was going through this, like I'm saying, there's no way they're putting me through this, and I'm still signing with an NFL team after this. Because at this point, every NFL team is in on it. They all in cahoots. So like no matter where you end up, right? The GM that you shake hands with, he was in on it too. I can't be cool with that. Like, I'm either going to play for a Canadian league somewhere, starting my own league, or I'm just done with football altogether, right? That's just me personally. You see what I'm saying? Because I can't be in a league that just did me bad like that in front of the nation, right? But if he again, though, he's gonna stay. He's gonna end up playing for a team. He's gonna end up trying to prove a point, and you know what I'm saying? And it's just gonna show how we put trust in these other nations versus trusting ourselves, right? And I believe Dion, man, with it, but for the sake of his kid, for the sake of his kids, journeying what his kid wants to do, he's suppressing a lot of stuff that he wants to say and do. You know what I'm saying? But
right, because then again, like I say, this ain't to make this situation a lot more greater, than what it is. But I will say, at the end of the day, it's an example, of getting somebody to conform to the system, right? But this is why I said I don't disagree with the brother's take on, we have to act a certain way to get what we want, especially when we're in captivity. I don't disagree with that, right? I actually agree. It bothers me that it has to be like that, but yes, nonetheless, it has to be that way. What I disagree with is the conforming to the system to get what you want in our land of captivity, because none of the things that we can get from this captivity is going to bring us closer to the Father, right? Now, I'm not saying education isn't, and I'm not talking about going to school, getting your PhD, right? I'm talking about being able to access the internet, to learn your history, to have Bibles that are printed, to be able to read your history, right? That is a great part. And that's one of the things that you can enjoy about this captivity, that it gives you the freedom to truly learn and find out things if you really want to. There's going to come a time where information is going to be not as accessible. And now you're going to have to truly know somebody to get some information, as opposed to right now, hey, going on Google and searching up stuff is free and it's easy. You just got to take the time to want to invest and learn about your history and who you are. Saying that to say, that's why we're on this lesson, because brothers have done this research. We've done the history to find out who we are. And we see how the NFL draft affects a lot of Black households, right? How their emotions are so invested into it. And it's year after year after year after year. And what bothers me the most is how so-called African-American, so-called Black people treat Black people like Shedeur. There's a lot of brothers on my timeline yesterday that was laughing at this man. On Thursday too. And I'm not the brother that's going to unfriend somebody because they disagree about this dude is good or not. Football ain't never been that deep for me to want to cut somebody off over. Neither has politics, right? I think, again, that's a part of the system that we need to get away from, because all of it is used to control us, right? And I'm going to bring out some more scriptures here in a second. But what I'm saying is that it offends me as somebody who knows our history, who knows the truth, and see how people treat one another. Because like the brother said, we should really, truly get in. We got enough people to do it. We got enough money to do it in our community. We should truly take all of our money together and start our own league and separate ourselves from the NFL, right? We should truly do that, but we won't, because like the brother said, we trust in a nation that will not save us, right? We're too scared to step out on our own, take a leap of faith, right? We're too scared to truly buck up against the system. And that's always been my biggest disagreement with people who submit to the will of the system to get what they truly want, because all it does is keep people in line when we need people to start stepping out of line, especially so that way we can get away from the societal norm of being broke back into following the ways of the land.
It's too easy of a concept to take all of our talent and put it in one league, bro. It's too easy of a concept to take. Can you imagine the NFL without Black folks? Can you imagine the NBA without Black folks? There's no such thing, bro. And think about it, bro. We actually had Negro leagues in the past, bro. And when them white folks got a load of what we had, because at one point in time, they truly believed we couldn't mess with them in sports, right? Until we got one or two in there, and they was like, "Oh snap," you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? But this all starts with, I hate to say it, players like Jackie Robinson. You know what I'm saying? You follow his story.
Man,
you follow how he had to get in line, right? When he could be himself in that Negro League, he could be himself. He didn't have to change to stay in the Negro League, but you know, our folks would do anything for $1. But I like what you said, but you know, say because like it's too easy of a concept to not get down with.
Not only that though, you know, the Bible speaks about not standing against the blood of our brother. That's not just in violence, right? But that's in all aspects. We're supposed to be able to defend a friend, right? A few years ago, we used to, you know, always bring that precept up, defend a friend because of a teaching that we saw, right? But if we really were a people to stick together, like the Spanish community, they stick together. White community, they stick together. The Jewish community, they stick together. We would see people like Travis. We would see people like Cam Ward. Despite the competitive nature, they would still be speaking out. What they're doing to my brother is wrong, man.
Man. You know,
I give my brother my spot. I give my brother my spot for this. But they doing to my brother deserves this. And I don't want to play in. They should be speaking. I don't want to play in a league that's gonna do that to brothers like this that deserve something, just because they want to prove a point. If we were really a nation of people, and if we were really brothers, and we didn't care about our individual lives, right? We would speak up when one of us get wrong. We would, you know, make our stance known. But the thing, like they did with Kyrie. Kyrie is loved by everyone. Kyrie is loved by every person, every player. I don't know, not one player in the league that said they hated being Kyrie's teammate. He hugs everybody every time he plays against an opposing team. Nobody stood up with that man and said, I'm not playing until y'all let that brother back on the court.
That's why you can't tell me this ain't about race, bro.
We got the power to shut down Nike. We got the power to shut down the NBA, the power to shut down the NFL. But we're too worried about our individual lives.
You can't tell me this ain't about race, because you have somebody that's loud and jazzy like Shedeur, but you also got people that's super humble like Kyrie, and they do us the same, right? They do us the same. And here's my thing. You cannot tell me you can't sit by and see the racism that goes on when you look at cases like Shedeur, Kyrie, we look at like Colin Kaepernick. This stuff is blatant. When you go back in time, our kids and stuff, when they see this stuff, it's going to be blatant to them. For us, for people in this society right now that's confused, they trying their hardest to think it's not a racial thing, right? But in depths, it is. Think about the story for Shedeur. That story wasn't going to just be for him. That story is going to be about the black family, about black fathers that get a bad rap about not being in their kids' life. Not only for the black father, for black educated kids. We talking about a dude that should have went number one, right? That played for an HBCU. He was gonna have HBCU highlights playing while he get drafted at number one, bro. You know what that's gonna do? You know what that would have did for HBCUs? But then again, you got to think these white folks know that they don't want these niggas to go to. They don't want these top high school prospects to go to these HBCUs where they have that money don't enter into their communities. That money enters into our communities.
Look, I mean, to the other side of that, you know, Travis was in the same boat and he did go number 2.
Right.
But I will say this though, right? I will say this. You know, with Shedeur and his dad.
But the crazy, hold on. Before you, I'm sorry. I gotta say this. The crazy part is you bring up Travis, right? They're okay with Travis doing that because what happens, right? We got a picture with Travis and his dad.
That's what I was about to bring up. That's what they push. So on the opposite side of what you said, pushing a great black family, like I said, they want to be able to give you that gift that destroys a heart. They're gonna show somebody's dad that's on probation. They couldn't just show the picture
of probation. I think that nigga was still in jail.
Well, they said he got approved for like extended probation or something. That's what it was. But my thing is this: the world don't got to know that. Just show the picture of him and his dad, right? When they take a picture together, you don't have to put that story out there, but they want to push that narrative to say we're changing this young black man's life.
Right? We taking niggas out the hood.
We are the black people's God.
We're their father, right? We're their stepdaddies now. You know what I'm saying? But just think about not what it would did for just Shedeur, but like for the black men and women in general. And I know it's on a carnal level because it's the NFL, right? But then again, that's where you look at it as like, you know, we shouldn't be looking to prove ourselves and organizations ran by our oppressors, right? That's never going to give us no type of validation. You know what I'm saying? We prove ourselves by starting our own stuff, right? By bringing traction to our own stuff, you know. And I believe one of these days, maybe before Christ come back, we're going to try to start our own thing, right? I mean, we know how Esau is. He's going to ruin it somehow, but we're going to try to do it, right? I mean, we had people like Ice Cube do. I just don't think Ice Cube was big enough to do something like that. It's got to be somebody that's in the sports world that does something and it gets people behind them. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't even necessarily doubt if LeBron James tried to do something like that after he retired and he ain't got to be a coon no more. You know what I'm saying? Because I do think LeBron be playing stupid a lot. But I feel like once he retired, he might start his own thing and might have some people rally behind him. You know, you never know. You know what I'm saying?
I doubt that.
Yeah, I you know, it's a stretch. It's a stretch, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, nothing's going to change until we start our own thing. I know J.R. Smith came out and he said a lot of this stuff beforehand, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, put your money where your mouth is, man. Go ahead and get it on the ground and running. You never know who might pitch in, you know what I'm saying? But it's up to, and that's, again, they take these young athletes that's 19, 20, 21. They don't give damn about community and culture yet. You know what I'm saying? You don't start caring about that stuff till you get older, till you about to retire, and it's too late. But if you can get some of these primetime players that's in the league to get on board and to come over, bro, man, it's a wrap. You know, you take a Kyrie and have Kyrie say F the NBA, you know what I'm saying? That's a start. But it's so ingrained in the Kyrie that he wants to stay. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but look, let's read some scriptures real quick because we've been doing a lot of talking. Let's read some scriptures, man. This is Deuteronomy 16 and 19, and it says, "Thou shalt not wrest judgment. Thou shalt not respect persons, neither take a gift. For a gift doth blind the eyes of the wise and pervert the words of the righteous." Right? Again, we shouldn't be taking gifts because a gift destroyeth the heart. Right? A gift will cause us to forget the main mission, like the brother's been saying since we've been on this live. The reason that Shedeur is spiraling in this draft right now is nothing more than the NFL's way of buck breaking the so-called black man with a father in his life who's trying to serve as an example and dictate his future, which is not a bad thing. It always happens with so-called black fathers, right? People criticize and ridicule LeVar Ball for being adamant about his sons and their future. Everything LeVar said probably could have came to pass the way LeVar thought it would have come to pass if it was the Lord will, had his second son, Jello, right, not gotten to that trouble overseas from stealing, right? But nonetheless, all of his sons were NBA prospects. All of his sons could have been very high lottery picks, like Melo and LaMelo, excuse me, not Melo to be confused with Carmelo Anthony, not the Carmelo Anthony, the young brother who's on house arrest right now, but the Carmelo Anthony who played for the Knicks and the Nuggets. You know, that Melo, the Lakers, the Rockets, the Thunder, that Melo. But saying that to say, LaMelo Ball, Lonzo Ball were high lottery draft picks, the same way LiAngelo Ball could have been a high lottery draft pick had he not got into trouble. But when LeVar Ball, when it was his turn to be the father, to protect his sons and lead his sons, everybody was kind of saying the same thing about Deion Sanders. The only difference is, like the brother Donald said earlier, I agree that the NFL low-key gives more racism vibes than any other major sports league. And why? Because, again, the foundations, the owners, you know what I'm saying? All of these leagues have some sort of racism in it. The NBA has it. The MLB for sure has it. But I think the MLB has it a lot less than both, right? But this is what I'm saying. Yeah, the MLB has came a long way, and I think that's due to brothers like Jackie Robinson, which we can view it as a great thing, but at the same time, in my opinion, not necessarily, because we were better off when we had our own. When we had Black Wall Street and we was doing our own thing, so-called white people came and bombed it, or they burned it down because of those false rape accusations that was put on a black man.
They definitely bombed.
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, this isn't the first time we've seen this happen. We've seen it happen when LeVar Ball get ridiculed. This is just the first time that in the NFL draft we're literally seeing a first-round prospect spiral all the way down. No allegations, no legal troubles, no X's and O's that people are saying, oh, he just isn't good as what he think it is. No analyst has truly said that thus far. They probably said things like he may hold the ball too long, or they probably said things like, yeah, he can, his reads may be off from time to time, but none of them have said he's not a first round talent because he just can't play. Nobody has said
everything
that.
Right.
Right. It's just sometimes, not even sometimes, the world hates it when you have a so-called black father in his son's lives and he's leading them in the right direction. The world hates black men for being there for their sons. The world hates it.
And what they're going to hate more is the fact that despite all of this, they still love their dad. Despite all this, they still making videos, right? Despite all this, you know what I'm saying? They still can't break up the black family, right? They still got that. What did Shedeur just post? He said, man, I thank God for everything. Who do you think he got that from?
Hey, check it out.
Who do you think he learned how to say stuff like that in this time, right? Hey. The man himself that after every single post he makes, he's saying, Lord, I thank you. Right? He learned that was instilled in him through his father.
Yeah, man. You know, and that's the narrative. Everything the media does wants us to break down. When you think of Austin Rivers, they wanted Austin Rivers to come against his father. When you think about you know, all the balls, they wanted the balls to come against their father. They all stood 10 toes like, nah, I love my dad. Without my dad, I wouldn't be here. Whenever it's the black family and success, they want the father out the picture. They want somebody to spiral out and be like, yeah, my dad, he just be doing too much. You know,
you ain't never heard them say that.
They want you to have to apologize for your dad. They want you to have to do all those things because they do not need the dynamic of the black family to grow. Because if it does, they know how contagious our spirit is and how we will eventually end up overcoming and conquering whatever they've taken.
Right. The crazy part is, man, you know,
I mean, it's almost like the brother said. I mean,
you said it's almost like the brother said.
I was saying the crazy part is the parallel from Shedeur and LaMelo Ball is almost identical, right? They both say what they want to say, do what they want to do, and they good, right? Now, when you look at LaMelo Ball, he made it in the NBA, but like Dion was going into before the draft even happened, he said, man, I know how the NFL works. There's certain teams I won't allow my son to play for. LaMelo Ball has landed himself on a team that Dion would deem as I wouldn't allow my son to play for them. Why? Because he knows how the NBA is. The Hornets ain't never going to win no championship, man. Right? They're one of the teams that's always going to get beat. You see what I'm saying? And he was trying to look out for his son. And so, you know, part of it is, man, if Shedeur probably would have got in, he probably would have ended up on a team like the Hornets for the NFL. They'd be okay with that.
Right. Man, and that's why let me share this chapter, right? This is one of the accounts about when I thought about, you know, the buck breaking and how I don't like it when so-called black men conform to the system. It's a problem for me personally because, again, like the brother said, I don't disagree with the brothers. And now I got to say that because a lot of people try to, you know, bring up straw man arguments. My disagreement is not that we're in captivity, so you have to play a role. No, that's not my disagreement. My disagreement is that when they tell you you need to play this role, you need to go 10 times harder and stand on what you stand on. I would never put going against the laws of God over serving the laws of God. So let's make that clear. Keeping the laws of God, obeying and living and abiding by the laws of God supersede everything. Now, what I'm saying is about personality. It's not a sin. Being prideful is the beginning of sin, right? But it's not a sin to be confident in your abilities. It's not a sin to know what you can bring, not what you can bring. It's not a sin to know what you are bringing to the table. It's not a sin to let franchises and organizations know that. The only sin is that sometimes you're born black. And when you do it, the world has a problem with it, right? Because I was scrolling down Facebook, just trying to keep up, you know, with the flow of the draft, right? Not necessarily because I'm just that invested into knowing who gets picked where. I'm just kind of following, seeing some reasons that people are saying that Shedeur still hasn't been drafted up to this point yet. And it's this girl that I went to high school with. She's a white girl. She's a Alabama fan. She likes Alabama. Her quarterback, Jalen Milroe, got drafted yesterday. He's a brother. Now that I'm not mad about that. But again, what I'm saying is a brother, somebody else we went to high school with posted and said, man, it's crazy how they doing Shedeur. I mean, it's almost as if like, man, it's no way y'all can't say he's not good when X, Y, and Z. I forgot what he said in the post, and she commented and said, yeah, it's not about his play, it's about his personality. She said it's not about his play, it's about his professionalism. And I always pose the question, like, were people actually in the interviews when Shedeur sat down with the teams? Were people actually paying attention to the media? Have people really been following this young man over the course of the last couple of years and see how he's responded and answered every question in the media? Again, that's why I say my biggest thing is sometimes confidence can come off as arrogance, and people can say you have a lack of professionalism. But my question is how? You're looking at a young man who every time he's presented with the question, he answers it thoroughly. You're looking at a young man who has a father in his life who teaches him, who's given him PR training on how to handle the media because his father was somebody that was in the limelight all the time. And then there was another brother that said he blames Deion Sanders for Shedeur's draft stock spiraling. And in my mind, I'm like, why are you going to blame a black father for being there for his son, for guiding his son in the right direction like any father should? The media had a problem with Bronny James getting drafted to the Lakers, and they say nepotism. But why is that a problem for strong-arming a franchise for the sake of your son? The only time people have a problem with it is when we do it, when our people do it. And our people have become so gift-driven, right? Their hearts are so destroyed, in a sense, for being devout one for another, is that our people are some of the biggest accusers and haters on that. And it's a sad reality. So the reason I put a second Maccabees was because just like starting at verse 18, just like Eleazar, it kind of made me think like this, right? Let me read this. This is second Maccabees chapter 6, and we'll start at verse 1. Even though we read this on the live before, I'll just be quick. It says, not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of God, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius, and that in Garizim of Jupiter, the defender of the strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place. The coming in of this, or let me read it again. The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people, right? So there's a people group being compelled to depart from their laws, right? Now let's jump down to verse number 17. It says, but let this that we had spoken be a warning unto us. And now will we come to the declaring of the matter in a few words. Verse 18 is the start of it all. It says, Eleazar, one of the principal scribes, an aged man and well of favored countenance, was constrained to open his mouth and to eat swine's flesh. If anyone knows the Bible, it was a sin for the Israelites to eat pork, right? Jews are Israelites. All Israelites aren't Jews. So you can't eat pork, right? So Eleazar, he was being persuaded to eat swine's flesh. But he, choosing rather to die gloriously than to live stained with such an abomination, spit it forth and came of his own accord to the torment, right? He chose to stand firm on the laws of God, right? I was going to say bold, that's why I said burn. But he chose to stand firm, stand bold, stay 10 toes down for the law of God, right? The problem is our society in today's time doesn't have it. With our young people, even with a lot of our aged men, our people will be quick to conform to the ways of the land. Our people will be quick to conform to depart from the laws of God in order to attain money, in order to attain wealth, status, anything. Women, doesn't matter. The simplest things in this world are I'll say it like this: the foolish things of this world confound the wise each and every day, right? Because we choose to rather have the success of this life rather than be able to look forward to glory in the next one, right? So let's read verse 20. And it says, as it behooved them to come that are resolute to stand out against such things as are not lawful for the love of life to be tasted. But they that had the charge of that wicked feast, for the old acquaintance they had with the man, taking him aside, besought him to bring flesh of his own provision. So they was counseling, they was conspiring together to counsel and say, look, we'll give you a lawful meat for you to eat. But listen what they said: such as was lawful for him to use, and make as if he did eat the flesh taken from the sacrifice commanded by the king. But see, they're saying, hey, you can get you a sheep, we'll get you a lamb. You just gotta act as if it's pork and make the people get down with the system, right? And that's what a problem is in today's time with this draft. You got to act a certain way. You got to look a certain way. You can't be confident. You can't be flashy. You know what I'm saying? You can't hold up your watch when you win, right? You can't do those things, because if you do, everybody else will begin to think it's okay to be yourself. And we don't want people to be yourself. We want you to, matter of fact, we want you to be what we tell you that you should be, right? Because that's all this is the media telling a young black man what he needs to be in order for him to obtain his status in this league that he wants to play in, right? All of these things are happening for that reason. You can't do none of that. None of that. You can't, with the grills, you can't wear the diamond chains. You can't have your own brand. You can't have a brother that records everything. You can't have a father that played in the league, in the NFL, the MLB, who was an NFL analyst for 14 years. You can't have a father give you guidance. Nah, you got to come from a broken home. Them the athletes that the NFL appreciates the most, ones who come from broken homes, because see, with no father in the household, with a lack of direction, we know that they'll do anything. You can't do these things, man. And that's what they was trying to tell Eleazar. Look, just act like it's pork. It don't even got to be pork. Just act like it's pork, so that way the people can see that you're getting on with the system.
Right. Just do it in front of the camera. Just do it in front of the media. Just do it in front of
the camera. Right, bro. You don't even got to do it for real. Just act like you're doing it for real. You know what I'm saying? But let's read. It says, verse 22, that in so doing, he might be delivered from death, and for the old friendship with them find favor, right? So he gonna find favor with the people that's oppressing him, and they won't kill him if he acts like he's eating pork, even though he's not. But he's going to deceive the people. And that's what a lot of people that says that goes on behind closed doors. People are deceiving us behind closed doors. But it's a sad truth that it happens in today's time, and we're seeing it happen now with the 2025 NFL draft with the brother Shedeur Sanders. He's being buck broken because people do not like it when black men are confident in their abilities and what they bring to the table and knowing who you are. And that's a problem, because the NFL should promote more people having fathers in their life that can give them a sense of direction about what they will and will not accept from anybody. If a man who stands for nothing will fall for anything. And I'm going to teach my sons to do the same thing. I may not have the status of Deion Sanders or a LeBron James or a LeVar Ball, but I damn sure tell you this: my sons will be confident in their ability in anything that they set out to do in life, and they will not accept nothing from nobody, not no corporation, organization, franchise, LLC, laissez-faire. It doesn't matter, whatever it is. My sons will not accept anything. They will carry themselves a certain way. Same thing with my daughter. She will carry herself a certain way. But the world doesn't want you to do that, right? But let's read verse 23, and we're going to finish this out.
I will say, too, since you said that, you know what would make me proud as a father, man? Knowing that my children, whether it's a boy or a girl, knowing that when life gives them sour grapes, they chew it up and swallow it. You know what I'm saying? Knowing that it doesn't change their character, it don't change their attitude, that would make me so proud. I'll be like, man, they mastered life. If bad news can't shake them, they've mastered life. You know what I'm saying? If they understand that God's in control of everything, I'll be proud, and I'll be like, they're ready to take on the world.
Right. I mean, like I say, we have to raise our children to be a certain way. According to the book of Ecclesiasticus, Sirach, like the brother Denal was reading out of last night, if you go to the 30th chapter in that book, you will see it gives instruction on how to raise your children, right? Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart from it. So that's why this one aspect of me is saying, damn, you know, it would help if maybe the brother, you know, didn't say nothing at all. But then again, that's just the side of me that's saying how to make it in captivity, right? But this side of me that's thinking about Eleazar, that's thinking about the mother and the 7 sons, that's thinking about the confidence that the Lord gave him when we were operating in our laws, living in our land. Even when we were outside of our land, we still had some sort of confidence. Not to the extent that, you know, everybody was just bold and rebelling, because again, we've done Sabbath lessons showing how a lot of our people conform to the ways of the heathen just to save their life, just to obtain that status that the heathens had, right? To get in good with the heathens. The thing is, we shouldn't want to be getting in good with the heathens. Now, I'm not sitting up here. I coach football myself too, so I'm not sitting up here saying that it's a sin to play sports, right? Because again, we have pastime, and I know a lot of people feel indifferently about Greek sports, especially in the land of our captivity. But what I will say is that I would never allow my sons or any player that I've ever coached conform to the ways of the system just so that way they can bring their family status and wealth. You know, that's never going to be me, because again, when you have examples like Eleazar left, when you read out 2nd Maccabees, the 6th chapter, and then when you keep reading, we don't have to read all this, right? But when you finish the chapter, right, let's just read verse 31. It says, and thus this man died. So what happened was Eleazar was asked to eat pork. Then they said, you don't even got to eat real pork. We'll give you a fake pork. We'll give you meat of your choosing, long as if it's lawful for you, just long as you act like it's pork. He said no. So then he thought about, he could just save his life for a little bit and go ahead and eat the pork. That way he wouldn't have to die. But then he thought about the younger generation. He thought about the young people. Then he thought about his age. He was like, I done lived all this life, and you telling me just to save my life, I'm going to lose it? He's like, nah, man, go ahead and kill me. So the king ended up killing him. And that's what it says in verse 31. And thus, right? And the memorial of virtue, not only unto young men, but also unto all his nation. So he left his death to serve as an example for everybody, not just the young man, but for the old men, not just for the young women, but the aged women as well. He left his death as an example of, to say, hey, stand 10 toes for the way you walk, the way you talk, the laws you keep, right? Because at the end of the day, you serve the Most High God and the Most High God alone, right? But a lot of what was said, it reminds us of certain precepts. Psalms 83, they taking crafty counsel against the children of thy people. They consulted against thine hidden ones, right? They said, go, lo, let us cut them off from being a nation, right? Mm-hmm. They want to cut off Deion Sanders from being the media figurehead and the influential man that he has been for Shedeur Sanders. They want to cut off Shedeur Sanders from being the flashy young guy who a lot of people call cocky for
You said something?
You said a lot. What I was going to say is, but nonetheless, man.
You said a lot of people call it cocky?
Nonetheless, at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying, it doesn't matter. You said what?
You said the last thing we heard was you said a lot of people call it cocky.
Seemed like I'm breaking up.
You was a little bit. I mean, you clear now. They say he drafted to the Browns, man. Round 5.
Can y'all hear me?
Come.
You said round 5?
Round 5. Auction to the Browns.
No, we was on 5 already? Good Lord.
Pick 144. Shout out to the 144K.
Brother had to clock out and clock in real quick. We can hear you.
Damn, that's crazy though. 144 people went before. That 143 people. That crazy. That's a lot of people, bro.
Yeah, man. Like I was saying though, like I was finishing up, I was just saying, man, that's why a lot of times I have the mindset of taking the approach like Eleazar, man, because see, one thing about it is the system is always going to try to put you in your place, right? And we need more people like, Shedeur to kind of like stand on their square about being who they are unapologetically, not worried about what people think, not worried about what critics say. And yeah, you trying to get in their league, but somebody's going to pick them up, regardless if it's 5th round, 6th round, 7th round, or he goes undrafted, he'll get a phone call. But even if the fact that he doesn't get a phone call, what's more important is about what follows after. What follows after is not trying to, stress yourself out about not being drafted or not being called for, not being signed as an undrafted free agent. And I think that a lot of people need to understand that we have to stop making these sports leagues, our end all be all. I watch it for the entertainment and that's it. I watch it for the fact that, I have a teammate that plays in the NFL that I went to high school with, and yeah, it could be a true testament of your hard work, but nonetheless, when you have a league that goes to these, I guess you could say, monuments to make an example of someone, it's kind of hard to truly just be happy and, ecstatic to join such a league that we've seen it every time a black man, is confident or he stands out, they want to make an example of him. They did the same thing with Colin Kaepernick, they're doing the same thing with Shedeur Sanders, but at the end of the day, the real reason is they want to make an example out of this man, and that's why he spiraled thus far. They want to buck break him, and my message would be to, hey, just continue to be yourself. And that's not for Shedeur, that's for everybody, but be yourself within the righteousness of the laws of God. Don't sit up here and be unapologetically wicked, Understand who we serve and follow who we serve. But with that, I yield.
Hey, the Browns, as far as the NFL go, what type of caliber team is that? Like, if what would you compare them to in the NBA?
Trash.
That's what I'm saying, bro. See, they send these flashy players to these teams that ain't never gonna win nothing.
144K. Right?
You get,
and they send them to the Browns.
Look. LaMelo is a flashy player. He good, but he ain't gonna win nothing with the Hornets.
But right? Who's the quarterback for the Browns? I
don't know.
The quarterback for the Browns is Deshaun Watson.
Oh, right? Okay. You got Deshaun, okay.
But what I'm saying is the Steelers need a quarterback because the only quarterback they got right now is really Mason Rudolph. So they could use the likes of Shedeur Sanders. But again, that's neither here nor there. He hasn't been drafted yet. So ultimately, I mean, the only good thing is that while there have been 4 other quarterbacks or 5 other quarterbacks taken already, there's still other quarterbacks that could go, but all teams that need a quarterback for real haven't really been drafting a quarterback. 5 of the teams did, but there's still hope.
Who was the quarterback for my question should have been this. Who was the quarterback for the Browns last year?
Deshaun Watson,
beforehand.
Jameis Winston.
Jameis Winston, right?
Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Now look, the way Jameis Winston approaches the league, that is how they want Shedeur to approach the league. I'm just happy to be out here. It's snowing. I'm thankful for the opportunity to play great football. That's what they want Shedeur to be like, bro. They want him to come into that role of I'm happy to be here, bro.
Right.
And the sad part is, man, the Browns could have picked him up in the first round.
Sure enough, the Raiders could have used them. The Browns could have used them. The Giants could have used them. The Giants ended up drafting Jackson Dart, which, again, my opinion, just based on film, he's not necessarily better than Shedeur Sanders. But nonetheless, you know, it's like I say, that's why, you know, my thing is we'll read Jeremiah 29:11 at the beginning of the lesson like we did, because it's all in the Lord's plans. You know, you can never write out the Lord's plans. Your will for yourself may not be in line with the Lord's wills. And if you truly trust in the Lord and lean not into your own understanding, like Proverbs 3 that we read says, then you will find peace in knowing that, hey, at the end of the day, the Lord's will is being done. So if it's his will for me to go in the 5th round, then I'll go. If not, then we look forward to the 6th round. If not the 6th round, then the 7th. And if not the 7th round, then, hey, maybe an undrafted free agent. And if not that, then now you have to truly trust in the Lord and say, well, maybe it wasn't the Lord's will for me to play in this league. Maybe he's going to do something, or maybe it's just not my time right now. You know, so many other avenues that you could have taken. But nonetheless, yeah, it's still crazy. I don't think up to this point that we're speaking, he hasn't been drafted. He hasn't been drafted yet, but I know when he does, you know, it'll feel like a weight lifted off his shoulders. Will he be motivated? Will he be kind of upset? Yeah, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's really just about understanding that, you know, in this life, there's a system. And if you're not going to subscribe to the societal norm, people are going to make an example out of you. The same way they did with Kuta Kinte. What's your name, boy? Kuta Kinte. Nah, your name Toby. And you beat him until he said his name is Toby. It's the same thing, like we said, butt breaking. We see it happen all the time. I feel like the brother said, if you want to live a certain lifestyle in this life, you know, and it's not a sin, just know that you're going to have to be careful about what you're willing to sacrifice, because you're going to have to sacrifice something in order to live that life. If you want to be a black young quarterback that's flashy and has a sense of, you know, understanding about his abilities, and he's confident in those abilities, then you just better make sure that you're willing to sacrifice, you know, the amount of things you say in the media, or you better be always willing to smile like Jameis Winston, like the brother Azrael just brought out, because again, they're going to make an example out of you if you don't subscribe to the norm, you know. But again, I wish our people were more devout and prideful and arrogant for the things of the Lord more than we were for the NBA, the NFL, the MLB, whichever it is. But that day will come. Until then, our job is to continue to take real life situations and relate them to the Bible for the sake of waking up the lost sheep of the house of Israel, not necessarily trying to make the Bible come to life, because the words of the Lord are life already as themselves, right? But I don't have nothing else to add. You know, if brothers got anything else? Con. Well, yeah, it's almost been an hour and a half, man. My laptop started tripping, so I started keep going in and out. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what's going on, but we can get that fixed. But nonetheless, through the Spirit, man, Shabbat Shalom to those who are keeping the Sabbath holy today. You know, we'll be teaching the Bible downtown Macon. So, you know, come through with your biblical questions. You know, some of your historical questions, come through with them. You know, at the end of the day, hey, let the Lord's will be done, right? But with that, man, we say shalom.
Shalom.